Hello, friends, and welcome to Worldbuild with us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty. I'm joined today by Daniel Quinn, Courtney Staples, and Christopher Prunty. So glad to have everyone here with us today. And on today's episode, actually, before we get into today's episode, we do have a little quick special announcement. We have made, if you've ever wanted to, submit a world building prompt to us, we normally tell you, you got to do it through the email. Guess what? We've now made it so much easier for you to submit your world building prompts. We now have a radial button that you can go to on our website that says submit prompt and fill out the Google form, and it will automatically submit that prompt to us. We hope that the streamlining process makes everything a little bit easier and makes everything just, a little bit better. Of course, if you want to send us fan mail and tell us how great we are, or just one of us, you can always email us over at worldbuildwithus@gmail.com. You can always go ahead and follow us on Twitter at Let's Worldbuild. You can join us on our Discord, or you can feel extremely generous and give us money over on Patreon. On to today's episode, which involves the afterlife yet again. But this time it's a little bit different. So this one is coming from Nyarogi, which is, I'm sure that I'm butchering that. I apologize if you can give me like a translation guide next time. I think you actually did, but I misplaced it, so I apologize in advance. Anyway, it says, hello, friends. I stumbled upon your podcast by accident earlier this year. And after first few episodes, I was fascinated by the Land of a Thousand Gods and your style of world building gems. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. As this world building prompt is a little bit complicated, I'm going to have to cut down on some of it. Basically, it comes down to there are 3 layers of the cosmos. There is the physical world, the afterlife, and an astral/spiritual world, which is a home for dreams and allows for planet hopping. So Nyarogi actually says that the main focus should not be a single world, but a cosmology that permits the travel between many worlds with elements which I would summarize as, quote, a fantasy transhumanism. There are also 3 layers of the cosmos, which is a physical world, an afterlife, and an astral/spiritual world, which is the home to dreams, manifestations of the collective unconscious, and faint echoes of the physical world. There are a number of other rules that we've kind of pared down here, but I think that pretty much sums it up pretty well, unless there's something I'm missing that you think is crucial, other co-hosts.
I think mainly the travel between worlds and the fact that you can, if you're still physically alive, you can reach the spirit world through potentially drugs or after near-death experiences, or if you suffer from certain serious mental illnesses.
And that's actually a good one. And there's also a way that you can pursue immortality, which is, I think they give us multiple ways, but there's the thing that I also find interesting, which is if it's misfire, then we can be stuck in the spirit world, kind of in a permanent purgatory state, which I think is rather interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So with this prompt out of the way, let's go ahead and dig into our tenets, which are things about this world that are true. So who wants to give us our first tenet?
I'd be down to go first, since mine is kind of an overall theme mood.
Sure, go for it.
Since, we just did another afterlife prompt we ended up with a product world that was remarkably similar to what this prompt is asking for.
Surprisingly, yes.
Yeah, but that one was more like a serious, dark, definitely got more technical as we got into the science of it. So I was thinking that this one should be more fantastical, and I'm thinking like Studio Ghibli style Miyazaki film, like Howl's Moving Castle or Spirited Away, where there's just so much like fantastical stuff going on. And to sort of hammer that in, I'm picturing the kind of convergence of these spirit worlds as a giant train station, where trains, or I guess any vehicle really, are used as like the spirit world transport from each physical world. and they bring you to this place where you can sort of interact with the other spirits, and maybe there's like an elevator of some sort that goes into the actual afterlife. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, it's just this enormous station type of thing.
So I'm so glad that you started out with that, because that is actually one of my prompts as well. Not so much the train station aspect to it, but I think in the prompt, Nyarogi says something about like, traveling the astral sea and visiting all these different worlds. And I'm like, okay, I want a literal astral sea where you have to have either a ship or like a spaceship. You have to have some kind of a vessel that you travel with. It can't be just your own person. It's like, no, you have to take, and in your case, from like physical world to spiritual realm, there is a train station. I love that. And then maybe beyond, like there's layers. So we start with trains and then go into, like a literal spaceship of something, or maybe we could even have it so it is dependent on which world you're traveling to. Maybe it's like your vessel changes depending on where you're going.
Yeah, I could totally picture like a mishmash of all these different types of things converging. Mm-hmm. Like maybe one world has a spaceship, another world that's an aquatic world has like a submarine or a ship.
Yeah.
And it varies based on that.
Maybe it's dependent on the person's perspective. It's seen as a vehicle of conveyance, depending on who sees it. So it could be like a long ship or anything. But even if you're going to a certain world, the person taking it sees it as that.
Yeah, I could definitely see something like that. And I'm recognizing now there is a danger that we're kind of facing, which is, are we just making Kingdom Hearts? Because that's where my brain is going right now.
I don't know anything about Kingdom Hearts, so I would say that's kind of not surprising for most people. But
I've also not played Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah. Wow. I wanted to add though that I think from a world building perspective, especially when you're dealing with abstracted concepts like this, stuff like kind of reifying them, into trains or into like physical objects is helpful, because then it lets you wrap your mind around how this all interconnects. So I like the direction that's going.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not only that, but of course, each person is going to have their own cool, customizable, like spirit force that they travel on. So, you might be traveling in ship world where yours is, as Chris said, like a Viking longship. And then you look over and there is like a, like there's a Spanish galleon. And then even to the left of that, there's perhaps a massive steamboat or something like that. I mean, everyone's, ship and vessel is going to look different and specific to them.
We're seeing this as some sort of grand terminal or hub. I want a force as my tenant, as something that oversees this, like a harbor master or I don't know who controls conductors, but just a alien / godlike force that is not comprehensible, that people see above this, that is unknowable. I don't know. I don't want it to be like the things that they do to maintain order and everything is kind of unknown, but everyone fears like interfering with them.
Okay. I think that we should probably give this thing some kind of an avatar, because I feel like we've done the unknowable force with our previous afterlife tenet stuff. So, I mean, what did you have in mind for this, entity?
For a name or for
what it might look like or what it might manifest as?
I forget the name of the shape, but essentially like a D8.
Okay, so you want
a D8.
So you want like a prismatic, like you want a prismatic being, essentially, right?
Oh yeah, like you don't even know where its face is. I'm talking about like old school angels covered in eyes or burning wheel.
I was gonna ask now, is it a friendly sort of, because we're trying to keep in the spirit of what Courtney's tenant, so maybe is it the jovial eyeball sphere? Like is it friendly in some way?
It could be seen as like it helps people in doing the things that, like, if you're carrying something heavy, you might just see like a prism of light help you pick it up, kind of thing. But I largely wanted it to be silent, but you can be silent and not creepy.
It's like a Cheshire cat that doesn't chat with you.
That's just creepy.
I was going to say half of the appeal of the Cheshire cat is that it chats with you, Daniel. Like that's most of what it is.
Otherwise, it's just a cat.
It is very weird looking, though. If we remember what the Cheshire cat looks like,
you can by and large have just symbols or something that kind of shows happiness, annoyance, or confusion. That would also allow it to bridge anything as far as language.
Mm.
Yeah, I like that as well. I think that we can probably like have it communicate through emojis of some kind. You know,
what if it's like the prism thing is its head, but it is actually a cat?
I like that too. In the spirit of belief, what if its animal form, it has this D8 head, depends on what the person like knows, because we're talking about different planets, right? So they might have something else that's like a domesticated animal, but it's not a cat.
Or even it could be down to the person, like what you look at and how it manifests differs from person to person.
Right, that's what I mean.
But it's but it's also like maybe fairly benign most of the time, you know?
Yeah.
So we've got it. So one thing I would like to try and point out as well is that I don't necessarily want it to emote through its head necessarily. Like, I know that sounds a bit odd, but for some reason I like the idea that there's just like some kind of floating representation of its emotions somewhere else. Like it's like a bubble that floats down or something like that. And based on the shape and the color and whatnot, you can kind of infer what it feels, you know?
Like one of those like things from The Sims that's floating above their head.
No, it literally is the thing floating.
I gotcha.
Yeah, right. No, it is still the weird like prism thing.
Yeah.
But then like to express itself, it like manifests a bubble or something like that, or it manifests, because I'm thinking like Ghibli, right? I'm thinking like very cutesy, very well for the most part, very kind of cutesy stuff, you know.
I mean, you could also have it change hues and maybe have a chime.
Sure. Yeah. So Daniel, what is your tenet?
So mine is, and it's interesting that we now have trains and like kind of metaphorical transit systems, is that time travel is possible through the spirit realm, and the spirit realm also functions as an additional time dimension of space. So
we've got Doctor Who mixed with Studio Ghibli, which I'm totally okay with. All right. So can you express a little bit more about the time travel aspect? Because that sounds really cool.
So my take on, he's got these three slices of reality. He has an afterlife, which seems to be kind of an irreversible space. You can't come back from it. You've got a limbo sort of space, which is the spirit realm, and then you have the physical realm. So I imagine the space in between those two, this spirit realm, is timeless in the sense that it must exist independent of the time as we understand it. So, or a dimension of time as we understand it, or maybe it's an additional dimension of time that lets you travel both forward and backward. And so I'm guessing the spirit realm, because it's not part of the physical reality, you can interpret it as an additional time dimension of space. So that means in our fourth dimension of space of time in the real world only lets us go in one direction. So perhaps in the spirit realm, you can go in either direction.
So you can kind of like travel back and forth between time?
Yeah, across all of these multiverses.
So does that mean that you can relive the same moment over and over again?
I bet. I mean, it also probably means that if there's a way to communicate with people who are in the physical realm, you could go back in time and communicate with someone in the past, you know, to manipulate events in the world.
I feel like there's a lot of implications with that tenet, Daniel, and I like it a lot. But I'm also like, oh, that just got like 10 million times more complicated now.
Yep.
Maybe it's like more difficult to do that sort of movement through time, just so everybody's not like doing that all the time and fucking with everything.
I would love for them to be doing it all the time and fucking with everything. Maybe things make sense from their perspective in the spirit realm, but we're not aware of the effects that they are having on us, you know?
Because now we have infinite divergent timelines is what I'm hearing, right?
Well, that, or like, imagine if the plane of physical reality is like the conclusion of all these manipulations, and it's constantly being changed from their perspective. So I could imagine like a bunch of spirits in the spirit realm interacting with people in the physical realm and changing events, but that timeline is constantly changing. So it's really the result of all of those interactions in the spirit realm at any given moment.
Okay. I think I have an idea. So you know how it says like, oh, you're traveling the astral sea to explore all of these different worlds and stuff like that, right? What if they're all just the same world, but various time fuckery has happened to each of them?
I love that.
And so it's like, it's not actually, you're not actually like going to Dino World. It's like, no, this is where some asshole came and like kind of blew up the timeline a little bit. You know, like that's what happened.
So there's really only one world, but it's been manipulated through all these different timelines.
Exactly.
And do you know how it was done?
Go ahead.
Using crystals.
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
Does that mean that the cat D8 is like some kind of like transcendent being, and that it is able to exist across all of those timelines? Like it's persistent.
I'm actually imagining this thing as like a keeper. So it's like, I bet that this thing is like looking at all the divergent timelines, and it recognizes how dangerous this whole idea is. So it's kind of kept this one world in like kind of a glass dome of sorts, where it's like, no, you're not going to fuck up the rest of the universe with this. You keep this in your own backyard. You know, like that's how it's seeing it, but on like a divine cosmic level type being.
I have not seen Loki yet, but it sounds like it's pruning the universe, which I saw in a YouTube clip.
I also haven't seen Loki yet.
Damn it.
I've been waiting until it was out in full so I could binge it all at once, or like in 2 shots, but still.
I just saw an image of classic Loki and had to watch it, which also was heavy spoilers. Don't watch that clip.
Yeah, I know. You always do this to yourself.
It feels good.
I'm sure it does. But speaking of Norse mythology, I actually want to dip into my next tenet, which is the primary species of this world are dwarves, and their anchor is a grudge that they carve into stone.
The fuck did you just say?
Who are you, and what have you done with Rob?
What is happening?
Yeah, that's my tenet, guys. So
I think we've just gone into an alternate timeline. We've split
so.
off from the norm.
Oh my god.
The fact that most of you are speechless is very gratifying, I have to say. Yeah.
Are these so the dwarves exist in the spirit realm? Is that what you're saying primarily?
No, in the physical world. So in the physical world, they are primarily dwarves. That's correct.
So are we saying in every realm in the universe, every planet, or like what? Where are these dwarves?
Yeah, this is dwarf world now.
Okay, so this reality, this multiverse, is dwarves.
So now that we've kind of got the multiverse thing, I'm guessing that this D8 is actually just me keeping all of the dwarves in reality into this particular setting so they don't bleed out into other settings.
I was going to say, this is you making the lack of dwarves everywhere else canon.
Yes, this is how canon gets worked in. Yes, yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Destroying dwarves everywhere.
No, not everywhere.
But
everywhere but
them.
This one place. Yeah.
So
everywhere but this one place.
So wrapping my head around this. So, okay. So there is the multiverse, right? There's all different kinds of dwarves in different realities. And as we established, there's really only one world, and all the other worlds are flavors of the timeline changing. But
correct, yeah.
This cat D8, and I assume dwarves must really like cats, because now we can actually have a unified cat head if it's dwarves, different kinds.
I mean,
dwarves.
it ties in with Dwarf Fortress. There's cats everywhere.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Love
you
cats.
don't want too many.
Wow. So okay, but really, the reason why it's all different kinds of dwarves is because this multiverse, primarily it is dwarves, so that they're just different flavors of dwarves.
Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
But remember, they're all like Studio Ghibli looking dwarves, which I'm now like,
And you
it's
said
kind of cool
that their manifestation is, tell us about the rune component again.
Oh yeah, that part's important. So in the setting description that he sent, or that in the setting description that they sent, they said that like there are ways to create like immortality for the physical body, and the way that I wanted to do that is these dwarves would anchor themselves into the physical realm by carving a grudge into stone. So someone had wronged them, and in order for them to stay mad and never die mad, they carve it into stone so that anger and that spite keeps them on the physical realm at all times.
I love that.
I can't argue with this.
It's just perfect.
Yep. Yeah, I thought. So in my mind, right, like the only way that the grudge kind of gets like ruined is if like another person comes by and says, "Yo, fuck this," and like ruins that carving essentially.
Okay. And now, do they carry, like, is this like an object that's grudged that you can carry and move around, or can it be like on a big statue or on like a sword? Okay.
Oh, I was seeing it as like a literal mountain carved into the side of a mountain.
I mean, maybe, but like really, all it has to do is carve into stone. That's really, because I would imagine, right? If you made it big and grand, that's just an open invitation for people to fuck with it. You know what I mean?
But you see, the dwarves have built a fortress around it.
What I love about this sort of thing does...
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you.
What I love about what this sort of thing does is, so we started with the premise is an enormous concept, even though it had a myriad bunch of rules to try and restrict us. But what I like what this particular tenant does, and what Courtney's does, is that it gives a specific flavor, and also what Chris's does, because it says something specific about the setting that now we can go down that hole. Like the fact that it's kind of lighthearted lends to dwarves, which lends to this weird Cheshire cat D8 creature. So everything we come up with from here on out, we have a direction in a sense.
Yeah. And you're right, Daniel. Dwarves do inherently make it lighthearted because dwarves are a fucking joke.
Chris?
That's going in the book.
Anyway.
That's actually the grudge that's carved into stone.
Yeah,
just exactly. A capital R.
Yeah.
So speaking of flavor, actually, and also tying in with your grudge thing, sort of, one of my other tenet was that food plays a huge role in the setting. Where, I mean, there's so many myths where somebody ventures into the afterworld and they end up stuck there because they've eaten food there. Thinking mainly of the Persephone one where Hades offers her pomegranate seeds and she eats those and is trapped there with him. So I had been thinking about having food be the way that people travel to the spirit world. But I'm wondering how we can kind of reconcile that with your stone grudge carvings. Are they like recipes for grudges?
It involves near death, right? The food. So maybe the food is in some way related to creating near death experiences.
Oh God.
Maybe dwarven cooking is known for being deadly.
Ooh, I love that. Like, it's so good. It's so poisonous or so spicy. It kills you.
I actually like the different varieties that you can take that, because the default is, it's so bad it kills you. It's like, you're eating poisonous mushrooms because dwarves, you know. But also it's like, no, this is so good it will literally send you to heaven. Like that type of thing.
Yes. And that also again pins a metaphor like to a physical incarnation, which I think is fantastic.
Wait a minute, hold on. If we tie the grudge together, maybe people are intentionally served bad last meals so they can use that as the grudge to pass over. So it's like, this motherfucker made me the worst meal of my life, that is going to be enough to keep me in the physical world forever because this grudge is getting carved into stone.
It's a constant war between dwarven critics and dwarven chefs.
It's beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Amazing.
Oh, that's so dumb.
I want to. Now, this is a setting I want to play in as well because it's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I have to point out, Courtney, that you did Studio Ghibli, and of course you have to do food because it's Studio Ghibli. Like,
of course. On. Yeah,
that's just an obvious thing that you have to do. So much respect there for sure. But let's drill down on the food thing a little bit more because I think that like there's a bunch of different opportunities that we have for it. What is the most appealing like actual canon that we can kind of get in there for it? Is it like food so good, food so bad? Like what are we thinking overall?
Can it be both? Like so like I like how you said with it being connected to a grudge, like maybe someone expected a really great meal and they get a poisoned one and you have your ugly poisoned mushrooms, but you can also have people who pursue a near-death experience because they have this incredible feast that like sends them to heaven, you know?
Okay. And I like the idea that you never know which one you're going to get. Like, I feel like there's probably a religious order who's like, look, we can send you to heaven, but it's not going to be the way that you do it necessarily. You know, like it's you don't know how we're going to do it.
I feel like taste testers must be like a common thing in this world to like protect nobility or protect other people from like being taken advantage of.
Is it all food or is it just this particular food? Because
maybe it's a specific.
Yeah. I'm thinking that this meal is something that needs to be sought out.
Like a special preparation.
Exactly. Like this.
Well, we were saying like drugs and everything. So I see it that maybe you get close to it every time. Like you can have something that's really good and brings you close, but a lot of people are looking for that one meal that transcends the others.
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
And how do we factor in? So again, I don't want to lose sight of the multiple realities, right?
Important.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it lends itself to it, but I want us to think about that too.
I mean, maybe each world has its own rules, you know, like maybe we're just kind of skimming a little bit off the top here, but really this is like just one particular fracture that we're looking at that has this whole food business. Or actually, maybe that's the unifying aspect is that every fracture has the food unification part.
Mm-hmm.
I like that more because it also thematically ties into the physical realm being about physicality. Like, so the consumption, you know, is the one unifying factor. So it might be different kinds of food. Like maybe in one of the realms where the dwarves ride dinosaurs and eat cats, it's how you prepare cats, you know?
Sure. Okay. Real quick. I have a kind of a sad idea. Maybe once you're not in the physical world anymore, because I liked what you said about like the physicality of the meal in the physical world. Maybe after you've ascended to the afterlife or there beyond, you can no longer eat food. And for some people like Daniel, that would be like, wow, that is the life. But for others, I would imagine that they're like, wow, I never thought that I never realized how much I would miss the flavors of the physical world. And there's like a tinge of regret. And maybe that's also the reason that people don't just continuously stay in the afterlife or stay in the astral sea forever. There is this little temptation that brings them back to eat every now and again.
Okay. I like that it gives them motivation.
Or maybe that's involved in how once you're in the afterlife, you can't come back from it. Maybe that is where you can't actually eat anything.
What do you mean by that?
So in the prompt, once fully crossed over into the afterlife, you can never come back. Mm-hmm. So maybe if food is the way to kind of go between physical and spirit worlds, once you end up in the afterlife, that's where you can't eat anything. Thus you can't move on or go anywhere else.
Because it seems like the spirit realm is really a limbo based on how this prompt describes it. It's a transitionary space.
And maybe that's too how you travel from like the spirit world into alternate worlds that you're not actually from if you're able to eat food from that place.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah,
that's perfect.
Where it's like that's the gateway back into whatever world you're visiting is. You eat something from that particular place.
It's very Alice in Wonderland too, which I think is fantastic because Alice in Wonderland is often like talked about from the lens of like multiple universes because it's so strange, especially through the looking glass.
And not only that, but you have the beautiful Studio Ghibli moment where it's like the person is traveling and they see that Studio Ghibli food that looks so good they can't help but eat it.
But
it takes them to another realm.
Literally, yes.
And although we haven't talked too much about this whole lich concept that's embedded in this, I think it's easy to resolve and set up because of what we've created.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so he has in the prompt a description of what essentially equates to creating phylacteries. Now, I think that's the grudge mark in the stone.
Correct. Yeah, that's my idea of it anyway.
Yeah. So I think that I don't think we need to connect that to food, but that's
no, I don't think so either. I think that if it does, that's a fun little coincidence. But overall, I like the idea that food is a literal gateway. I think that's a really cool idea. Yeah. So, Daniel or Chris, who wants to transition over?
I plan to fuck it up at the end, so go ahead, Chris.
Oh, you plan to fuck it up at the end?
Yeah.
Really? Because I plan to fuck it up in the middle with dwarves. So
it's not fucking fantastic. It up. That's ideal.
Just like added 10 times to it.
I'm actually very glad that I got the exact response that I was hoping to get. So yeah. Chris, go ahead and transition.
My tenant originally was going to be the fact that I wanted it.
Segue. We got.
I am. No, this is. Let me do it.
Oh no, but you got to acknowledge what the previous person said and then move on.
I'm gonna.
You should just leave that whole thing in.
No, but really, my tenant was originally going to be that I wanted it set in medieval times because I thought everyone was going to go like sci-fi and altered carbon with it, but we did not. And I feel like now that is, I mean, it can be medieval. You did dwarves, so that fits. So I have to do something else.
Well, the essence of your tenant is to try and restrict it to a time period, right?
Yeah, I wanted a bit more of the mysticism of the fact that all of this is going on, but no one's taking like a critical scientific view at it.
Okay, so maybe we can transform that to say, like, you know how, for example, Spelljammer takes a fantastical view of science? Maybe like the things we come up with in this realm shouldn't lead to like advanced futuristic concepts. They should lead to fantastical science fantasy concepts.
I actually had Spelljammer in mind when I was thinking of the Astral seafaring vessels. So I think that we're on the same page there.
Yeah, so like their cosmology, to Chris's point, is more about crystal spheres, and it doesn't follow like rules of science and rationality.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. That sounds like a cool idea.
Yeah, I did want it to be where it would not be scientifically based, where like wonder and magic and anything that's out there as far as spirits or other people, like people inherently know that some of this like magic stuff happens, that you transcend to another land, but unless you've experienced it, it's not like you can document it in any way. So there's still the kind of, I don't believe you that this other land exists for some people.
Yeah, sure. We can have like a Spirited Away type thing for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I could even imagine like one of the timeline / worlds is a bunch of dwarves who they proclaim themselves to be scientists of some sort, but the reality is they discover as they unravel reality, it's more bizarre than they could have imagined, you know? So it's all possible that the truth leads to fantasy is what you're saying.
Yeah. All right, Daniel. So we have approached the point where we've got a pretty solid grasp of the setting so far. So what is your last tenet and how are you planning on fucking it all up?
Okay, so bear with me as I explain this, but the tenet as I wrote it down was the afterlife is actually the real world of the living, and the world of the living is actually the afterlife. And so what I'm pointing at with that is that we have these, at least according to how the prompt is structured, we've got these 3 planes of existence across the multiverse. We've got a physical realm, we've got this transitionary space where all the fun stuff is happening, and then we've got this afterlife, which is talked about a little bit less in the prompt, and it's a place that you can't return from. So in a sense, the way I take that to be is that it's an end to history. Like if you can't return from it, what happens in there is kind of closed off. So I'm wondering then if the real world of the living or the real world of action is the afterlife, and we're calling that middle space, perhaps we could nix off the afterlife and then not only tighten up the prompt, but make things way more interesting.
I thought we were already doing that, because to me, right, like the third part, the astral world, which is like the home of the dreams and stuff like that, I feel like that is the bridge that we use to travel to the different worlds that we've talked about previously. Is that not what you're already kind of looking at?
I think that's what this is saying, essentially, because it's kind of cutting off that final place you go to that you can't come back from. And instead, we're allowing the action to happen in the middle space where, you know, you can travel to other realities and you can interact with the physical realm. But your history isn't over, right? Because you can still take action and interact with what's below you.
Okay, so you're saying that there's too much overlap between the 3 worlds that we have here. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and I think the third one is less interesting narratively because it's a point of no return, right? So metaphorically speaking, the real world of action, the real world of the living is actually where they do all the fun mind stuff in the middle realm.
Can we just use that as like the method for transportation? So like it doesn't have to play a major realm within the people. It's just like maybe when I was thinking like, oh, when you travel the astral sea, that's that third spirit world that we're talking about. So like that's when you're traveling from world to world, you're not like you're physically moving there via this astral / spiritual world. Like it doesn't have to be a place where you exist, but rather a means to connect the afterlife and the physical world.
Oh, so like a timeless space in between.
Right, but like one that's also kind of fun in and of itself because it's kind of chaotic, right? Like it's collective unconsciousness. There's faint echoes of the physical world. So when you're traveling this place, it's like maybe out of nowhere there manifests a volcano, and out of that volcano, instead of lava, comes like these little pill bugs that are made out of electricity or something. I'm trying to think Ghibli here, something that's like bizarre and otherworldly, you know?
Yeah, so then it's kind of like moving in between the two, which makes sense.
Sorry.
Yeah. So you're basically saying that the transit from physical world to afterlife is the spirit plane, and the afterlife is the train station terminal thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, okay. I could totally see that, and that makes the travel itself a lot more interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what we want to focus on, because Nirogi in the prompt says that they want to like focus on multiple worlds, right? And you get exploration by traveling the astral sea, the the unconscious third spirit world type thing.
And depending on how you want your adventure to go or your story to go, the means of conveyance could greatly differ in how that's done. Like if it's a boat, you're having like a little bit of a sea adventure and seeing stuff on the way there, as opposed to a train. You might have something that's like Murder on the Orient Express, which would be really weird, seeing how you're already dead.
Oh, actually, yeah. Okay, yeah. I think that makes a lot more sense. Like, and not only that, but I think that it kind of rectifies Daniel's qualms with like that third world. Like, it's not just like something where nothing happens because you're fucking dead and nothing matters. Like that's like
right. That was my exact reaction.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, no, I'm trying to go like Lisa Frank nihilist here.
Yes.
And you're just regular nihilist.
Oh
like,
my god, you should call it Lisa Frank nihilism. This has got to be a genre.
It already exists. Why
it's called. It really does. Holy crap!
Have you not seen? Okay, we're gonna have to.
So Walmart. I like the Walmart. What was it? Walmart Realism or Walmart
Kmart?
Kmart
realism,
realism, and Lisa Frank nihilism. I did not know Lisa Frank nihilism is a thing.
Daniel, you stick with me. You'll learn all the weird niche
Wow.
shit that you only learn on the internet. Trust me.
Jeez.
You
got to put that in the description of the podcast episode.
I would love to just have a GIF here. Let me see if I can find here. I'm sharing this one.
Oh my God, is that what it is?
Yes.
I'm send it to my friend who I call Lisa Frank.
Here we go.
Yeah,
that's exactly. The middle realm has to look like Lisa Frank nihilism.
Oh my God.
The void sea you've created. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, the Astral Sea is like all rainbows and like cute animals.
And puppies and dolphins.
Is that
and
where
shit.
the orb cat thing exists? Like truly exists?
Oh, that would make sense. Like it's just kind of bouncing around there. Yeah.
Because it's like a manifestation of the Astral Sea. Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. I feel like we've got our tenets down, knocked out. Let's go ahead and see what the anchor for this world is going to be. Okay. So for our world anchor, the thing that we're going to be focusing on and creating, the thing that we're focusing on first is an artifact. And the theme of this artifact is fury. Okay. And okay. So how interesting. So how do we reconcile something that is an artifact with a theme of fury in a world of Studio Ghibli and dwarves and sailing the Astral Sea?
I mean, fury in a way is like kind of a grudge, or a grudge is a type of fury, I guess. So we could.
You mean
tie
dwarven
it in that
fury?
Way. Yes, dwarven fury.
See,
yes.
I disagree with that. I feel like with grudges, those are like simmering hatreds. With fury, I feel like it has to be hot. You know, like it's got to be an active hatred of some kind.
Fury is when spite is acted upon. So maybe it is an artifact left behind by someone who so strong was their grudge that they accepted oblivion over continued existence.
Yeah. Can it be the greatest grudge in all of time?
It's either the greatest or the first. I'm cool with either one of those.
Oh.
Yes. I like the first.
Wait a minute. Hold on, because I'm fucking flying by the seat of my pants here. Can the grudge be against existence itself?
Of course it can.
So it's like, I fucking hate existence, and like they inadvertently trap themselves in this interstitial, like life on life type thing. And as a result, maybe this has like happened so long ago that the weird cat like D8 head thing is that thing, but it's been warped through eons of like whatever. Like I don't know. Again, flying by the seat of my pants here.
It was alone for so long, and it has existed for so long that it has transcended madness back to sanity again.
But it's like it doesn't know which is which anymore, which is why it manifests in such weird ways.
I mean, we never talked about why it has a head that has the number of sides that the D8 has. Perhaps these greatest.
I was going to say it's because Chris liked the shape, which is fine. Well, like that's totally okay.
So, I mean, along the lines of what you guys are talking about, what if there's the faces represent the greatest grudges of all time?
Oh, its face is literally a grudge hall of shame or fame, rather.
Yes.
But it's coming off as very cute, but people are just like, oh, it's showing the symbol. It's just like, hey, you remind me of this person, but you don't know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I can support this dumb idea so hard. Like so I think the important thing is like, what is its significance between the world, and what is its significance between the world and the afterlife?
The faces or the
artifact that we've created.
Is the artifact its head?
I mean, it can be,
It
but
can
I imagine that
encased in the artifact.
Oh.
Oh.
Is the grudge mark in its head?
No, I'm saying like its body is the grudge mark.
Oh, okay.
This person just really hated cats.
That was a secondary thing.
So what I'm actually imagining in my head, right? Like, and this is pure headcanon for a world that I'm making up, but that's fine. Is at the center, because in my head, I'm imagining this D-headed or this D8-headed cat thing as massive. Like, I'm thinking like King of all cosmos level of huge. Like, he basically sits on the horizon type large, right? And in my mind, at the center, the D8 itself, like that weird, like ziggurat slash like monument, at the center of that is actually just the physical form of the first grudge,
Okay.
Yeah, and I was taking on that now after so much time, it just has the mind and mannerisms of a cat. I don't like to think that it actually has a cat.
I'm totally fine with that. And I like the idea that this weird hedron thing on the like the physical world is actually just a weird inert monument that can't be destroyed or can't be moved or can't be changed in any way, but it has huge significance in the afterlife and beyond.
Yes.
Yeah, because it exists in a realm that's timeless, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. So I feel like we've kind of created an interesting world anchor, even though we made it earlier in the show and just kind of gave it an origin story. Sometimes that's totally okay. And that's totally acceptable. So now we're going to go ahead and just basically fuck everything up by rolling a twist that we will have to reconcile next week. So the twist is going to be the stakes get even bigger. Interesting. And we will reconcile that twist as of next week. Thank you so much for listening. Remember that if you want to send in your own prompt, you can email us, or you can go ahead and go on our website and click on the submit prompt button, which is brand new. Yes, brand new and all nice and all that good stuff. Or realistically, if you want to email us and tell us how great we are, worldbuildwithus@gmail.com is where you can find us. You can always follow us on Twitter @Let'sWorldBuild. And you can join our Discord community with a link in the description. And if you're feeling particularly generous, you can always give us money over on Patreon. All that stuff is in the description or on our website. We have links everywhere. Dear God, the links are everywhere. Remember that we love you very much, and we're going to get through this together. Until next week.